Michael, thank you so much for joining us on the Rising Beyond podcast today.
Yeah, I'm so grateful to be here with you, Sybil. Thanks for having me.
Yeah, so we don't often have males on the show because unfortunately there's not a lot of males who are advocating for survivors of domestic violence and coercive control.
Totally.
So I very much
Yep.
appreciate that. Can you share a little bit about how you became passionate about supporting survivors?
Yeah, totally. Um, it's a funny story, the way that life takes us on unexpected twists and turns. I was taking a gap year from graduate school, and I found myself in Tucson, Arizona, needing just a temporary mess around job for a year. And I found I couldn't bartend and be in the service industry like I had when I was younger anymore. I had kind of aged out, but I always loved working with kids. And a friend of mine recommended me for an open position facilitating a therapeutic art program at a domestic violence shelter.
Mm-hmm.
And so, you know, that just immediately began to change my consciousness. And I think a big part of what came into focus for me there was I realized that the story of men's violence against women and the culture of impunity in our society around it, I realized that that was my own family story, but I had no idea of that fact until I found myself sitting every day listening to the stories of these survivors and their kids.
Right? Like such a huge, like mind-blowing experience probably
Yes.
to
Yeah,
experience
100%.
that
Yep.
and have that revelation. What did you notice
Yeah.
most when you were working with these kids? Like what stood out to you the most?
Yeah. I appreciated pretty quickly how complicated abuse is, for kids, but I think it even helped me just have insights into it in general because, like it's their dad. They love him most of the time, right? They love him. They miss him. They're sad not to be with him. They're telling fond stories about him. And then they also have these dissonant experiences of him terrorizing their mom, and doing really harmful, selfish, destructive things. And I think that pretty quickly, like holding space for them, right? And I was doing these art therapeutic programs. So like they were helping them create art to work through things. And I just learned so much how, that intersection of love and care and affection and control and domination, how it is really insidious and complicated.
Yeah. Yeah. And I started out working mostly with kids. I'm a play therapist by training. And the amount that we learn, and I wish, the professionals out there that are listening, I hope you have an opportunity to hear from children.
Yeah.
Because, we, as a larger system, we focus so much on the victim, the adult perpetrator. And yes, it's typically the victim's fault, even within our larger systems, right? Is how it's posed. Like, why didn't she or he leave sooner? Why did they, procreate with this person? Why didn't they see it sooner? So, right, that focus is always on the victim in that
That's
regard.
right.
But if we are listening to our kids,
Yeah.
the amount you can learn and how much they're impacted is astronomical. Like so many people are like, well, they were in the other room.
Right.
They were sleeping.
Yeah.
And that is not my experience. The kids that I've worked with, they know so much.
Yeah, right. And I think, I understand because it's hard for us to acknowledge like sometimes what our kids are going through as parents. That's hard to face. There's a lot of grief in that. So I understand where that comes from, but yeah, 100%, right. They are, they're missing nothing about what's going on in our home and what they're going through. And so, yeah, that for me was this massive light bulb experience of like, oh, this is on a different level maybe, but like a lot of similar dynamics were in my family, and this was my mom's experience as a child as well. And so I think it just helped me to really see how much abuse is a part of a lot of our stories, many of our
Mm-hmm.
stories.
Right. And even that idea of like, what is abuse looks really different depending on who you're talking to. I mean, even when I was, early in my career and in graduate school, I like knew the words of like, this is emotional abuse or psychological abuse. Like I had the language, like I knew
Yeah,
that.
yeah,
I didn't know what it looked like. I assumed domestic violence was physical, all physical.
yeah,
But the different layers of that coercive control that's always
yeah,
just underneath that is so often missed. So often missed.
yeah. Yeah, 100%. I think, and right, it's so intertwined in U.S. society at the very least, right, with a lot of our everyday norms, about control, about gender relationships, that I think, yeah, there's that quote that it's no sign of health to be well adjusted to a sick society. But I
Mm,
think we have a lot of that going on where, yeah, we are really trained to call things normal, that really are unhealthy and unsafe.
yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. And that gendered piece, it comes up a lot, right? There's a lot of gosh, even angry feel like on different platforms and different things about like why is the Rising Beyond community solely for women, or why like men are
Yeah,
abused too.
yeah,
Yes, and there are some differences
big time.
within those gender relationships, and
Yeah,
even if we're looking at heterosexual cis male cis female relationships, that looks
yeah,
different than in the
yeah,
LGBTQ community, or
yeah,
when it's a female perpetrator and things
yeah,
like that. And so I'm excited when you reached out to me. I was super excited. I was like, yes, a dude that's going to talk to me about all
yeah,
the things,
yeah,
um, because I think it is really important. So we just
yeah,
added literally well, he's been actually involved in Rising Beyond for a while, but we have a male therapist facilitator that's a part of Rising Beyond Power and Control.
love it.
And
Yeah,
I think it's so important for men to be
yeah,
involved, and it sounds like you do as well, and I'm
yeah,
excited to talk about that. So yeah, why do you believe that engaging men
yeah.
in this work is imperative to
You
change?
totally, so, like, for starters, like, I believe that we live in a structure of systemic oppression. I use the word patriarchy. I know some people don't like to say that.
Mm-hmm.
But I believe that describes the situation that we're in. I believe that feminist work has, brought a lot more safety, equity, justice, health, and well-being for men. I am a beneficiary of
Mm,
tons of feminist labor. My son is, my daughter is. Um, and so that being said, for me, and it's a lot of, so I have been doing intervention and prevention work for decades, and I'm a researcher as well. And then I'm doing coaching around this. And so a lot of what my research, um, looks at is how gender-based violence and men's violence against women is really foundational to so many other types of violence and oppression in our society.
yeah.
And so for me, what I really feel like, if we can wake men up to understand what is being done to us and through us, and this is my own story I've experienced. If we can wake up to that, we can create so much healing and justice and safety in the rest of the community. But I feel like so many issues, other political issues, environmental issues, a range of things really can be tied into, patriarchy or toxic masculinity, however you want to talk about it. So for me, it's something it is at the root of dysfunction in our communities, and it's really a public health crisis, I think.
Yeah. Yeah. And if you haven't been touched specifically by domestic violence, or a lot of my audience, they have left their abusive partner, or they were discarded by their abusive partner, but they share children with their
Right.
abuser. That is
Yep.
that's my audience, right? And so we're
Yep.
looking at all the post-separation abuse and how the family court system is used to continue the abuse, how child
Yeah.
protection is used to continue the abuse, how
Yeah.
all these larger systems that are set up in ways
Yeah. That's right.
that support abuse,
Yeah.
just in the way they're set up.
Yeah.
And so having, right, it's like, oh no, the feminists are, protesting. And no, it's like, how can we all, because when even some of, males, I'll be talking about what I do and they don't initially like shy away, right? Because some are like, oh, that sounds interesting. And then they're not interested to talk to me anymore.
Yeah, totally. Yeah.
That must be hard. How's, I'm going to go over here and talk to somebody else. But when they actually hear what's going on, like what actually is going on, they too are like, what? Like that can't be right.
Yeah.
Why on earth? Like we're giving children to their sexual abusers full time.
Yeah.
Like that makes no sense.
Yeah.
And so it's like, how can we, so how do you see like the advocacy and really opening people's eyes, specifically men's eyes, to what is actually going on?
Yeah.
What have you seen to be really helpful or the most helpful?
Yep. Well, so I'll share this by way of a story, if that's okay.
Mm-hmm, absolutely.
So I was working at this domestic violence shelter, and about a year and a half in, the women that run it said, "Hey, Michael, we need you to be a part of this experimental program we're organizing to figure out what it would take to get men to take responsibility for ending violence against women." And I went into it with all these judgments about, abusive men. And it was a 26-week program, once a week, 2 hours, super intensive. And of course, you get all these men in the beginning, they all have their guards up. They're defensive, they're justifying, they're blaming, etc. But then we started to talk about let's talk about what you learned and saw about being a man when you were growing up. What were the messages that you got about what it means to be a man, how to get love, how to get respect, how to be valued, and how you needed to relate to women to get love, respect, and value in our society.
Mm-hmm.
And so, what I found overwhelmingly there for myself. So I found myself in the same predicament as a lot of these abusive men that I had come in with judgments of, was that there was a real broken heart that was not being named. That like we never named as men. Like, this society is breaking us, but there's no space in which we can talk about, this is actually awful. I hate how I behave. I hate the things I've done to get love and acceptance from men. I'm scared of men. That's a huge truth that we as men never say. Meanwhile, all these guys on the internet are defensive. It's like, man, if you get men in a room and have a real vulnerable question, there's I'm terrified of men. I've been wildly hurt by men. I never let my guard down around men. Right. And so what I found is, if you facilitate the right conversation and create space for men to be honest, including you have to have men who are doing their own work in the space to say, like, I'm on this exact same journey on you. It hurts. Let's stop lying about it. That I found that overwhelmingly men are really thirsty to have that conversation. The trick is that it's hard to create sort of institutional buy-in and larger cultural support to hold spaces where this type of work is being done. But if you can get men into a room and have that type of conversation, I think it's a door that most men are ready to go through, because they're in a lot of pain and they don't talk about it.
Yeah. What's interesting is, before I started the Rising Beyond community, and I in my therapy practice, I did like your typical like therapy groups, like, right, for, like 8 to 10 weeks thing or whatever. And so I was doing some market research because I work in my practice, my therapy practice, we work with male survivors too.
Mm-hmm.
And I was like, gosh, how cool would it be to have like a group of these men? And so I asked, and like men that were joining my email list and things like that, I was like, hey, I'm wondering about starting a group. And all of them were like, we love reading your stuff. We like listening to your stuff. Or my clients would be like, no, I really appreciate this. I'm not doing a group.
Yeah.
And I was like, what? Right. I'm like, is it because I'm a woman and that feels weird? Like, do I need a different facilitator kind of thing? But the few that would actually tell me the why was they were like, that sounds petrifying. I'm not going to do that. Like, it was that, initially it was like, well, I don't know if like the schedule will work. Like that was I'm really busy. Totally. I don't know if the schedule will work. But after more discussion with the men that I was, had more of a relationship with, it did come down to, that sounds horrific. Like that sounds horrifying to me. That seems so scary to me, to be in a room with other men, even if it was an online room, to talk about this stuff. Nope. No, thank you. And so, yes, there needs to be spaces, and maybe I'm not the right facilitator, right? That is 100% possible, that they would prefer a male facilitator for that. Right. I don't understand the male experience the same way, right? And so, when I brought Alec into the Rising Beyond community, I got permission. Like, I would not have brought him in without the permission of the initial group that he started with. Because that feels scary to them, to have a man in their space when they've been harmed by men.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. It makes a lot of sense. And I think so one of like the main tools I use a lot with men, starting tools, is the book from Bell Hooks, The Will to Change. And what she says, one, the first act of violence that patriarchy demands of men and boys is not violence against women, but it's violence against yourself. It is to emotionally cripple yourself. And if you're not successful in getting the job done, you can count on other boys and men to enact rituals of psychological terror to destroy your self-esteem until the job is done. And so I think, one of her major claims in that book that I love, it means a lot to me because I advocacy of children is like really core for me. And she says that what's at stake in the way we're raising boys today is a question of child abuse. And so it's like the normal traumatization of boys that we call like the socialization process that creates men is something, it's just like, we're not talking about it as men, but most of us have a lot of trauma from other men that needs some attention on our journey to become safe.
Yeah. And I agree in that space of the way systems are the way systems are set up, we are continually putting our kids in harm's way, right? I would say one of the greatest fears of my, the community that I run and clients is not for themselves. It is, oh my gosh, how do I prevent my child from becoming an abuser?
That's right.
Or how do I prevent, and it's more like, how do I prevent my boys from becoming an abuser? How do I prevent my girls from being abused?
That's right. 100%.
And that is their greatest fear. Is protecting them at all costs. And then when they show up as mama bears, like really intense, the system is like, oh, you're crazy. No, you're this is too crazy. And so then our kids are placed in harm's way.
Exactly. So I'll share the big project I'm working on.
Mm-hmm.
probably more interesting to me than most people, because I'm working to turn my dissertation into a book for popular publication. But the
Mm-hmm.
real provocation of that, right, which I know you know so well, you were talking about at the beginning, is our society, for reasons that I understand, it will get really caught up in the question of like, well, why doesn't she just leave?
Yeah.
Why doesn't she leave? Why doesn't she leave? Um, and there's the real question to be asked, which is like basically the title of my project that has been my organizing project for a long time, is this question that I think we don't ask because it's so hard and big, which is, but how do we make him stop?
Yeah.
Which isn't the same as like incarceration. It's not the same
Yeah.
as disposability, right? How do we all together as a community like end this behavior, end this cycle, right? And I
Mm-hmm.
think exactly what you're saying, so much of, so we resist that question in our strategies and our thinking and our practices. We just don't bother, and most men are like, well, they're a lost cause. So,
Yeah.
and meanwhile it seems to be getting worse. But so much of what really provoked me to that was that initial working with moms and their kids and realizing, like plenty, not everybody, but plenty of survivors I work with, they're like, I don't even want to leave him. I just want the abuse to stop.
Mm-hmm.
And nobody has great answers there. I don't want my son to follow in his footsteps. I don't want my daughter to have to suffer this. I want this problem in my community to stop. That's what I really heard the most from survivors. And our infrastructure is willing to give them everything except for a good answer to that. Because the truth is, I think as a society, it's overwhelming us still, that question.
Yeah.
How do we make him stop?
Yeah. Right. And it's like, it's easier to, and right, there's some who enjoy abusing,
Yeah, plus
right?
that.
Those are
Yep.
not the men we're talking about, everybody. Those are not the men that we want in those groups.
Yeah.
But there are these like young men and like I'm thinking like
Yeah.
college age
Yeah.
men, or like my oldest is going into
Yeah.
high school. Ugh. Like,
Yeah.
ugh.
Yeah.
But like him and his buddies,
Yeah.
right? Like these boys,
Yeah.
how do we
Yeah.
start there? How do we
Yeah.
start with our kids? Like,
Yep.
yes, grown men, like join the party, please,
Yeah. Yeah.
too. Like we want that. Like, come on, everyone, join us.
Yeah.
But that does seem so scary.
Yeah. I think it's a Frederick Douglass quote. He said, it's easier to build strong children than it is to repair broken men. Um, and so I do think, that is so much of the work. And so, what I was doing for a number of years after some of that men's work, I became the CEO of a nonprofit where we did weekly talking circles in the school system, in middle schools and high schools, between teenage boys and adult men. Um, and I think community based, multi generational work, um, for me, that really is an essential through line for making a difference, because the culture I feel of masculinity, like what is in the mainstream in the United States, our paradigm it's a bad one. It's
Yeah.
incentivizing us in a bad direction, including
Yeah.
like mainstream superhero stuff. I don't mess with all that. So then you've got all of these teenage boys. So many don't have a dad in their life. If they do, it's not great. Um, and so I think more of that community based model, where all of the men in a community are taking responsibility for all of the boys. It's sort of that rite of passage model of like, we are here for you as you figure out how to become who you need to be. I think
Mm-hmm.
that is a really big part of one of our only hopes to break through an environment that is like more generally pretty harmful.
Yeah. Yeah. And a lot of, I'm thinking about some of the kiddos we work with, or over the years we've worked with here. And one of the things when I'm doing conceptualization with, like, I have interns that I'm training and things like that. And it's like, the question a lot of times is like, gosh, how can we find a safe male like mentor for these kids?
That's right.
Where are these people? Like, are they
Yeah.
in the schools? Are
Yeah.
they in? And so it's like, and it feels like finding the needle in the haystack sometime of
Fully.
like, no, not that teacher. Oh, nope,
Fully.
that one doesn't feel safe. But there is such a lacking
Yeah.
of, right. And I don't know if it's resources. I don't know if it, right. I'm not sure what's preventing
Yeah.
that, but we have over the years, I have seen that so often
Yeah.
with our kid and teen cases of like,
Yeah.
gosh, where can we, like, this would be so beneficial to this
Yeah.
kid.
Yeah.
I got nothing, right?
Yep.
It feels so hard to
Yep.
find
I
that.
mean, and I do think it's like it's community based solution. So what we were doing, it was a group of men who saw a need in their friend group, in their community. They had some moms that were like, "Hey, our sons are getting 13, 14. We need support with them. We feel like we need them to have some
Mm-hmm.
pause." So they started organizing sort of wilderness, like rite of passage, but just like, camping, boys and men, but very healthy and intentional and purposeful, and values driven. And then that sort of grew and scaled in the community. But I think you need those sorts of things because I think even like, I hopefully this isn't too like too aside, but even a lot of mentorship programs, right? Because that's the field I was basically in for a long time. The one-on-one mentorship, one, there's a wait list of boys
Oh,
that's
forever.
infinite. Two, like, you know, the men aren't necessarily being vetted, screened, or trained in a specific way. And so what I really valued about what we were doing is we were putting our volunteers through a training about really like the context of patriarchy, violence in our community, racism, and then we were facilitating these weekly talking circles where the men were really trained to show up in sort of a countercultural way. And so I think there's not a lot of mentorship models that's
Yeah.
what they're doing, and to me, that's what we need.
Yeah. And of course, if we're thinking about like the larger picture of things, it's like, oh, we don't have the budget for that. There's no
Mm-hmm.
funding
Yeah,
for, right. And
yeah,
until, honestly, until kids are seen as more important than they are,
yeah,
and they're seen as not property,
yeah,
the money won't be put there.
yeah,
And so, yeah, it's like, it totally depends on the day you find me, where I'm like, I am so positive and
yeah,
optimistic and we're going to do the thing. And then sometimes I'm like, nope, it's all about money. But
yeah,
and I'm thinking now in the kind of era we are in,
yeah.
we need this more than ever.
That's right.
And the resources to have this are
Yeah,
lesser than ever,
yeah,
almost. So it's like
yeah,
we have to have some major kind of problem solving within that realm. Um, and then those of us that really do a ton of advocacy type work, there needs to be people that we can tag, right? Because this is hard work.
it is.
And my guess is that especially males who did not grow up with the level of kind of not emotional intelligence even, but like holding emotional stuff and being
Yeah,
really comfortable holding it. My
that's right.
guess is, and I don't know, this is just me like
Mm-hmm.
thinking out loud, that the burnout for males who haven't just consistently felt, been allowed to feel and allowed to talk about and allowed to do this is probably pretty high, pretty overwhelming. I feel like we need lots of people to tag in and out
Yeah, yeah.
for
I mean,
healthy
mm-hmm.
advocacy.
Totally. I do. It's definitely true. Like, I think just in general in our movements and in the anti-violence movement, it's like it can be a place of burnout. So
Oh
so
yeah.
yes, we do need to be really bring a lot of care there. I will say, part of like in my organizing work, I put all of this in prevention, sort of the intergenerational masculinity work. Um, it's and I think there's a ton of research that shows this. Men are not as healthy when we're not involved in multiple like generational relationships, and I'm not talking
Mm-hmm.
about parenting. I'm not talking about our kids. Um, I saw so many men make really big breakthroughs in their own healing that probably would have taken them a decade in therapy because they learned how to be vulnerable and really witness the inner life of an adolescent boy and to hold
Mm-hmm.
space for him to share and to not rush in and try to fix and try to know and try to think, but to learn how to be open hearted in their company and to hear, you know, 10, 13-year-old boys talk about their own individual heartbreaks in their life at home, their grief, their trauma with their dads. Um, and so I think like it is true what you're saying about burnout, but the thing I just want to lift up is I've seen that overwhelmingly men are wholer, happier, more content, functioning better because they're in a regular space where they are giving and holding space for teenage boys. And I think part of that is because that has been the model of community. That is
Mm-hmm.
intrinsically healthy, and we're
Yeah.
basically missing it. And so it's one of those things where sometimes you don't know that you have an unmet need. You go decades and you don't know something's bothering you until the first time you're like, oh, I'm getting a need met that I hadn't been taught that I had.
Yeah. Yeah. And I think two things came up for me. One is there does need to be some sort of buy-in, right? It's sad. Like, you can't just be like, look, this is a problem. Like, join us on our fight. Like, there has to be some buy-in initially.
Yeah,
And so finding those ways of like, how would this benefit you? Like,
yeah,
that's,
that's right.
kind of a pessimistic way to look at it, but that's
Yeah,
real. That's what I've seen in the world. But how could this benefit you? And it
yeah,
sounds like you are seeing that benefit in that regard. But then I'm thinking too of one of the things that I do a ton about is teaching survivors how to parent these kids who are going back and forth to a less safe home and
yeah,
to then their home. Like, how do you parent these
yeah,
kids
yeah,
who, again, the family court system, they're clearly not interested in what I think needs changed. Like,
yeah, yeah,
but how do you do it? Because this is the container you're in right now.
yeah,
And one of the things is like, how can you be with your child and allow them, right? You're attuning to them, you're co-regulating with them, but you're just with them. You're not trying to fix anything, because that attunement and that co-regulation will do some of the fixing, right? It allows them to be their authentic selves. It allows them to start sharing. It allows them that felt safety. And
yeah,
so, yeah, I think if it does feel harder, as I'm thinking about like when I'm working with male parents, so I'm working with the dads,
yeah,
that feels so much less comfortable to them to just be with.
yeah,
So much so like they're like, so I'm
yeah,
like, yeah, you're gonna tune, maybe if they're speaking quiet, you're gonna bring it down. If they're doing this, you're gonna follow suit. Like, you're
right,
following their lead, but you're just with them.
yeah,
You're right. And that seems much more difficult for the dads.
totally right. Well, I think it's like so many healthy human capacities that um are coded feminine in our society, associated with femininity. And then we have, and it's my work too as a dad. We have whole adult human beings who are like, I don't really know, I'm not really practiced or comfortable doing that fundamental human skill with
Mm-hmm.
people. So I'm so grateful that you're doing that teaching and guiding, and and that is the work, right? Is helping men to learn, like, hey, we have to learn how to be whole human beings, and life gets better when we do.
Yeah, I have a client. This was years and years ago, and the dad was a single dad after some. Right, he was stationed elsewhere and came back, and the amount of neglect that was present was massive.
Mm.
And he was military, and he's like, I need my kid to stop doing this, right? And it was like, okay, so, and I had enough of a relationship with the dad to be able
Yeah.
to say, say these things. And I was like, okay, so you're not going to be excited about what I'm going to ask you to do. It's like, but you really want this behavior to stop. And it's not about the behavior. It's not about the consequences. Like, I actually need you to rock your child, like hold your child, and you're going to, like, you can do it while you're reading books for school. And it was an older, like young elementary school. But I was like, I need you to like rock them like you would a baby. And he was like, wow, like, why would I do that? Like, he's not a baby, and it was like, I was like, can you just like, do you trust me enough to try? Because your kiddo didn't get that. Your child didn't get that when he was a baby. He didn't. The neglect was, it was pretty horrific. And he was, it was so funny. He was like, you better not tell anybody that I'm doing this.
Yeah.
I'm like,
Yeah.
sir, I get, right? Like,
Yeah.
nope. And he did it. And I'm sure he was so uncomfortable.
Yeah.
It's like the least comfortable thing, but so cool for him to come back. And with like in a month, the behaviors had decreased so significantly. Yeah. And it was like, your kiddo just needs like this level of connection and care that he didn't get when he was little. And you can do the thing. Like, you are more important than I am as the therapist, right? Like, parents bring their kids to me and they're like, fix my kid. Like, you're the therapist. And actually, you are more important. Yeah. They're with me an hour a week, maybe, right? You are more important to their healing than I am important to their healing. And so really focusing on, just that comfort in, you don't have to know all the answers. You don't have to know how to fix it. You just have to be connected with, and then you're reaching out for help when you don't know. Like, that's like, you're already doing the thing. Yeah. But that just being with, gosh, is so, so helpful for our kids.
Yeah. And again, not that this is the point or the intention, but just like, what we know, right, is like how good that was for him. Mm-hmm. Like, even if in the conscious mind, this is uncomfortable, this is scary, I have all these judgments, I have all these critical thoughts about it, but just at like the own nervous system level, like how good is for all of us as human beings to be able to rock our child at whatever age they need rocking. And that's what I mean. Like, there's a form of violence that he's holding together within himself at the point in which he's like, absolutely not. He's protecting and keeping in place his own structure of violence that he's had to internalize, right, to survive. So in the letting that down enough, sacrificing that structure of violence enough to hold his child, I'm just like, that's like, to me, I'm like, that's probably like light years of therapy that he's bypassing, of just his own regulation, healing, attunement, etc.
Yeah, and his confidence in parenting just like skyrocketed. That like, he can do what his children need. Like, it's within him. Yeah. And then also just being able to show your kids in a different way, like how much you love them. Yeah. Right. Like, in this different, not like, I love you, son, pat. Mm-hmm. Like, oh my gosh. I am sure it was so healing for both of them. And it was, so I love when I do have dads that I get to work with that are on board. Again, he was not excited about anything I said. He was like, Sybil, like, what are you but man, it was amazing. So I'm thinking, for all the people that are listening, which is mostly women, what is there anything that they could do to help get men within, like, on board, and not in this like picket, like holding the sign, picketing type way, but just what do you see? Because I I am sure there are people listening like, yes, I need, like, I want
Yeah.
this, I want to, but what could women do to
Yeah.
help in this like movement?
Yeah. Um, I'm going to give a couple of answers. I'm going to give a caveat first. Um, like really though, like my caveat first would be like nothing. You know, if women
Yeah.
could get men to change, men would have
It
changed.
may be
Men, no,
changed.
nobody's been trying harder. Nobody's done more. Nobody is doing more
Yeah.
every day. And I think a lot of times that works really well for men. Like, yeah, like the women in my life hold the space for the desire for me to change. Great. I'd love to offboard that.
Mm-hmm.
Right. I have so many wives calling me to get their husbands into coaching. And I'm always like, hey, here's my number. Have him call me if he wants to call me.
Yes.
And
Yep.
they don't because their
Mm-hmm.
wife does the things for them, which is about it's about protecting the problem. So anyways, I'm going to give a better answer than that, but I just want to say it,
No, I
like
appreciate that answer because um like that is one of the hardest things actually for survivors to break once they've
yeah,
left
yeah,
and they're, in the family court system, they're separated, and it's like they get in trouble if
yeah,
the dad doesn't show up or
mm-hmm,
sign up for the school
yep,
conference, that the
right,
mama gets in trouble, that the
yep,
dad didn't sign up for the
yep,
school conference. And one of my is like, hey, guess what, you are no longer their secretary.
yeah, yep,
Like they lost that the minute they abused you. So
yep, yep,
so I actually appreciate that answer too.
yeah, yeah, and so I'll share two like bigger things that are there. Um, with that being said, I think one thing I say a lot, and this is a parenting strategy too for parenting boys, but just for the men in your household, there's that old parenting framework of catch them being good. So for me, catch them being good in the context of men's work, is when I see a boy or a man in my life doing something, no matter how small, that is stepping outside of the man box. That
Mm-hmm.
list of stereotypical rules: never cry, be fiercely independent, know everything, be in control, be decisive, etc. When I see, for example, if I see my son express some sadness, even for a moment, even very fleeting, like, hey, I just want you to know I really appreciate you showing me how you were feeling. That really helps me
Mm-hmm.
to get to know you and build trust and to care for you better ultimately. So I know it's really scary to show people how you're feeling, especially when it's like sad. So I just want you to know that I really appreciate your willingness to like show your sadness to me. I really appreciate, I saw you listening to your sister earlier,
Mm-hmm.
and respecting her. And it really makes me feel so safe with you. And I see how you can respect and listen to the women in our life, and take their leadership. Right. So it's like anytime I see my husband, a man in my life, I see him doing anything, because the thing is like that man box model of manhood, it is fake. Nobody can live up to that, and if you do, it destroys you. So the truth is, when we began to look out for it, most of the men in our life are constantly exceeding the man box in little ways.
Mm-hmm.
For a moment, it's fleeting, it's fugitive. They try to tuck it back in, they try to make sure nobody sees it, right? Because there is safety in conforming. But if in the moments where against all odds they visibly break out of it, if I can just throw water and fuel and fertilizer onto that and say, more of that, please. I love that. That's beautiful. That connects me to you. I think that's, the biggest thing. The one other thing I'll say, and this is with the caveat of like, am I in a safe relationship? Is the man in my
Mm-hmm.
life safe? Right. Cause he needs to be. Um, but I think in the book I mentioned earlier, The Will to Change by Bell Hooks, she says that what patriarchy really requires for it to survive is for us to keep its secrets and
Mm-hmm.
for us to practice obedience. And so, um, like I'm doing a reading group right now with a group of men and women. And the assignment for this week was like, go out and be disobedient. In the times where you would normally be quiet, say something. In the times where you would like normally facilitate his comfort, like don't. You know what I mean? Like the ways that we can withdraw collusion, but we have to be safe enough to
Yeah.
withdraw
Yeah.
the collusion that it demands. But I think I do think that is a part of it. Like patriarchy trains women to never tell men the truth, and it trains men to punish women when they do tell them the truth. And I'm not
Mm-hmm.
like as men, we are responsible for breaking that. That's the real thing. But I just want to say, for the women who are in a safe position, like, yeah, like telling the truth is breaking patriarchy down.
Yeah.
Um, and that's a more complicated one to navigate in our relationships. But I do think, like, I love it when I can say that in the presence of a man and a woman, and I know he's safe enough, and I'm like, hey, her job is to piss you off a lot more, right? And
Yeah.
to show up like a fair human being, and to expect that out of you. And that is a way that we're going to dismantle this in his life.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Yeah, I appreciate that. I'm excited for your research. I'm like, ooh, it actually might pair with one of my uh, therapists who's a PhD candidate, her research too. So I'm like,
Oh,
we can talk
nice.
offline about that.
Let's go.
Yeah, I was like, so yeah, I've been thinking about that some too.
Okay.
But yeah, so if people are interested in you, interested in your work, interested in
Yeah.
working with you, what is the best way for them to connect with you?
Yeah. So my website is www.lifeunboundcoaching.com. And I will say, on Instagram, TikTok, Facebook, at Life Unbound Coaching, I produce tons of daily feminist men's content. I have a weekly series I do called Men in the Wild, where I find Reddit relationship posts or other sort of viral relationship posts on the internet where a woman is basically showing up being like, oh, I need help with this man. And really like looking at it from a men's accountability perspective. And so it's a really great series.
Mm-hmm.
The feedback I get is it's a great series for women who are trying to wake up the man in their life. They could share that video with him and be like, do you see what I'm saying? And because it's a man saying it, they're a little bit more inclined to be like, oh, okay,
Yeah.
I do see what you're saying.
Yeah, absolutely. When they're like, oh, this Sybil lady, like she's just a little mom, like therapist, whatever. Yeah. So if you are driving, folding laundry, whatever, all of that information will be in the show notes. Michael, I'm so excited that we connected. I have so many thoughts in my head about different things, different connections, different, ways to do things. But I so appreciate you being here.
Yeah, it's an awesome opportunity. I'm really grateful for the work that you're doing, Sybil. I was so excited for the chance to come on and talk with you. So thank you.
Yep. And thank you all, as always, for listening. If you have questions, you had thoughts after this episode, a lot of people email me info@risingbeyondpc.com. I do share those questions and things with my guests. So if you have one, just send it to me, or you can go directly to Michael's website and contact him. And just thank y'all for listening, and we'll catch you on the next episode of the Rising Beyond podcast.